Welcome to LSC. It's Sports Time. I'm your host, Bob Hintz. Today I have with me William Washington, head girls and boys track coach at Kickintown High School. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Glad to have you here with us. We're going to talk a little bit about growing up because you were over at Bethel and been a lot of different places. But when you grew up, you did a lot of running. Track was always been kind of in your blood, but you also played some football.
I did. I started at 8 years old. My mother wanted to find something for me to do.
Take care of that energy.
Time. So I started playing rec league football at Mallory with Henry Kennedy was my first coach.
Okay.
And then I went on and ran track that same year, and I continued to do both of those all through high school and most of my college career.
Okay, now when you were back in first starting out, do you remember some of the guys that was a lot of neighborhood guys that ran with you and played ball with you?
I think that was the beauty of the way it used to be because we all grew up together, so we all played together from the time we were 8 until we all went to high school and then went our separate ways. Walter Bailey, Boo Williams, and Andrew Williams, and he passed. He's one of our few friends that passed away.
Right.
And we all grew up together. Some guys went to Hampton High, some went to Bethel, and we played against each other, but everybody remained friends.
Okay, so that was more of a neighborhood thing back then. Now it's kind of spread out a little bit. But then you went to junior high when there was still 7th, 8th, and 9th in the junior high school system.
Oh, yes, sir. And then at that time, everybody played all the sports. So I played basketball, football, ran track. My 9th grade year, Coach Lewis was the basketball coach at the time. I went out and I made the team, but he said, "You're really not going to play." So I wasn't that good of a basketball player compared to the other guys. So you make the team, but you're not going to play. Why don't you go over to Bethel and run track? And I was the first 9th grader or junior high school student to play high school sports. And I went over with Elton Morgan and Macklin. David Macklin were the coaches at the time.
Right.
And they took me in, and I ran track with Miss Peck Kovass, and those were the coaches at those times. And I did pretty well as a 9th grader.
Okay, but see, people don't understand that back then, junior high, if they had the sport at the junior high school, I don't care how old you didn't go to the high school until you got there. There was an indoor track program, so there you go. And Al could see you were a good athlete. You could make my basketball team, but you're not going to play a whole lot.
Not going to play. A lot of good basketball players back then. Kenny Stewart and those guys those were basketball players.
Right.
I was a football track guy that just played because that was just the next thing to do on the scale of what we had to do during the year.
Were you the only one that went over in the indoor track?
I was the only one. The first one in the city, the whole city to ever do that.
What was that like? Because you're going over there, because when you're in 9th grade, you're looking up to the guys in the high school.
Coach Eddie Williams, I don't have any brothers, and he lived next door to me. So him and his brothers were my brothers. So they took care of me when I got there. Coach Eddie Williams was my big brother. At track practice, at home, he's always been. I was comfortable there because, again, neighborhood guys were there. They all ran and we participated in sports. So it was easy to do. I really appreciated my mother because she would pick me up from Eaton and drive me to Bethel every day for practice.
Wow. Well, because you don't walk there.
Oh, no, you couldn't walk back then.
By the time you got there, practice would be over. Well, then you go to Bethel as a 10th grader, and you make the varsity football team. You in varsity, but you and 2 other ones.
Again, Walter Bailey and Andrew Boo Williams. We were the only 3 to make the varsity. It was a big deal back then.
Right.
Back then, cars had green was offense, gold was defense, and white was rookies. If you wore a white jersey, it was like head hunting day. Sean Gale and all those guys, they would come after you if you had a white jersey on. So we had to still wear the white jersey, but we had to practice with the varsity and play in the games and travel. And we went off to, we go to different places. And later on, we went off to Ohio when I took us to Moeller.
That's right, because you guys went and played Moeller, wasn't it?
Played Moeller, Ohio.
I knew they went, but I couldn't have picked the year that you guys went out there. But I remember because it was a process.
Oh, yeah.
That you had to go through the VHSL to get permission to go out of state and play a football game.
At that time, that was the high school Hall of Fame game.
Right.
Because they did a college game, a pro game, and there was a high school game. We played Moeller. That was ranked number 1 or 2 in the nation at the time. Right. So it was a very good experience.
Who was on your team with you when you went there?
Oh, wow. Again, I can remember all the guys. Our quarterback then was Bob Wilkes. which
Right,
he
Bob,
ended up running
right.
track with us, and
Right.
he became part of that little family. Bob Wilkes was our quarterback. Walter Bailey was the football star. He went off to UNC and played.
Was Sean on that team?
Nope, Sean Gale had just graduated.
He just graduated because he went to Ohio State.
Right, he went to Ohio State, but he had graduated and went.
Yeah.
And it was an amazing process for us to see what a big private school did and how they did things. And we played extremely well. I think we lost by maybe 2 field goals or something like that.
Right.
Their lowest total scored that year.
Wow. So, and you're just, this has got to be almost overwhelming, but to do this stuff, and now you look back on it, you say, wow, I was able to do things that, people just don't get a chance to do.
The process of being in sports with Coach Cos, it was amazing. I spent almost every day with Coach Cos, because again, we went from football to indoor track to outdoor track.
He was like your daddy.
He was there, and no matter what, I've always loved Cos, Coach Inslee, Coach Morgan, because they taught me so much about not only running and football, but about life and
Right.
and those things that you take and how you treat people, and how you take those things with you forever. So
Right.
that's what I really took from that. But they took us to a lot of places. We went to Philadelphia. We went to New York. We went to the faster we ran, the farther he would take us, and we always had great times, and we're like a little family.
Well, talk a little bit about some of the times, because you guys held some national records during this time.
We ran 4x2. We had probably the best relays in the country. And back then there was no internet. So we were looking every month, we'd get the track and field news, and we'd look and see what the top teams were and the top events. And we figured out what the times were so we could get in the book. And that was our goal. And Coach Cos would get the book every month and say, where are you? And that was our motivation and our goal to get there.
Yeah. Because you and I were talking earlier about the way Cons could motivate people to do things. And these guys wanted to play football so bad, but he'd say, if you're going to play football, you're going to run track too, or you're going to do something else.
You're going to do something else.
Right.
Cos and I had we had a love-hate relationship.
Yeah.
He would get on me so much, and looking back, it was what I needed to grow.
Right.
And just
at the time, though, you weren't too thrilled.
I wasn't too thrilled with it. But the process was always one that he would kick you, but then he'd come back and he'd get you and he'd pull you in. And then that's what we all learned. And he was our common enemy. Cos would come, he'd yell, he'd scream. So we all would.
Well, when I had Mike London in here, he said that, we'd get off to the side and we'd go, wah, 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 like Cos, we'd imitate him. But he says, you remember when he was talking to you, you knew that he was talking to you. There was no doubt in his mind, and he had your best interest at heart.
Always. And a lot of people don't see that, and as the times went on and the times changed with the kids and the parents, they didn't see his motives and the way he pushed kids, but he always had our best interest at heart.
Right.
I can never tell you a bad thing about him. A lot of things I didn't like at the time, but there's not one thing I could tell you bad about Dennis Kozlowski.
All right. Talk a little bit about Pat Kovacs, because she was very important. And a lot of people don't know Pat. She's kind of back in the rafters behind you. You can't see her, but yet she's got a lot of influence on you guys.
Pat Kovacs was my mother away from home. Right. She took care of me when I walked through the doors of 9th grade. I was the youngest one. She kept me out of trouble. She drove me when I needed to be driven. She would explain Cos to me when I didn't understand him. Pat Kovacs was the glue that held everybody together, because she could go to Cos and tell Cos, this, and this.
You've been a little too...
Right.
Yeah.
She was the glue that held it all together through all the state championships, through Allen Iverson, through all of those people. Pat Kovacs is the one consistent thing that you can find in all of those people. Sean Gale. And if you ever talk to any of them, Pat Kovacs was always that staple in all of our lives.
Okay. Because I've heard so much about it. I've known Pat for years. When I was over there, Bethel, she was over there at the same time. But, you talk to the different guys that was on the track and all, and how she was able to help you with other things that Kyle probably couldn't have done. I don't know. He may have, but she was, as you say, was the glue that held you together.
Well, but she would get you. Like, I had her for class, and I went and I didn't have a pencil. So I didn't have my material, so she sent me out. That evening, when we went to track practice, she told Cos. And I ended up getting 4 or 5 paddle shots because I wasn't prepared for class. Never happened again. So she was on your side, but she was going to make sure you did everything the right way.
Right, right.
And you appreciate that when you look back. But she's always been to this day, one of my most favorite people in the world.
Well, now going through the high school and everything, and then you're gonna go off to college, and you end up going on a track scholarship and a football scholarship.
Right. And I was recruited by Virginia Tech, VMI, NC State, and I got hurt. Ended up going to my senior year, pulled a muscle, and that's when we learned that this is truly a business. And I ended up going to Virginia Union University,
right,
where I played a couple years of football and ran track.
Right. Now, were you basically a sprinter, I'm assuming, because you was on all the relay teams,
right.
So that was your forte, was right. Sprinting. Now, talk a little bit about the process of recruiting, because it's a little different now than it was back then, I'm assuming.
It's a lot different. When we went to school, you could get a 4-year scholarship, and they would get you for 4 years, but nobody really would explain to you the intricacies of it, because if you messed up, they could send you home. If you didn't, your grades weren't right, they'd send you home, but they would give you a 4-year scholarship. Now it's a 1-year scholarship. Oh. You have to really earn your scholarship every year.
Every year?
Every year you earn it, and it has to get renewed every year. So they can cut your money, they cannot bring you back, because you have to earn your way every year. And that's what I teach my kids, because it's a business, and you have to understand it's a business.
Right. See, and I didn't realize that it was like a yearly thing. It's like a renewal subscription, but you better make sure you're doing right.
Yes, sir.
So now when you're talking to the kids now, you can't think like it was when you did. They have to understand right what they have to do to maintain that scholarship.
And that's one thing that...
Do you talk to the parents too?
Yes, sir. We get the parents in, and we try to explain to them their level. We don't want to send you anywhere where we don't think you can be successful. Right. Just because you can get into a university, you still have to look at all of the other aspects, the social, how much travel, expenses, things of that nature. Because if you're not happy there, you're not going to succeed. That's one thing that I'm proud of at Kecoughtan, is that we have a 90% scholarship rate or better. The kids that have been in our program 3 years or more. Right. We get you into school. Some we've gotten into University of Pittsburgh, Virginia, all those different places. We've had Yale graduates from grad school, doctors, teachers. But the one thing that we hold on to is that the kids come back. All the kids come back and they talk to the other ones and they explain to them what it's like every day in college and what you go through and how to take advantage of the things that we do now so you're prepared to go when you get there.
Right. All right, now you graduate. What'd you get your degree in?
I got my degree in education, and I have our architectural degree. Okay. Architectural drafting, I'm sorry.
All right, so you go into coach right away? You go into coaching right away? What do you do when you graduate?
I had an opportunity to go into corporate America, and I worked for a Fortune 500 company.
Right.
And I traveled around the country in different parts of the world as a corporate consultant. And then I came back home. After about 5 years of doing that, I came back home, married, had kids, and came back home. And started teaching and coaching. I started my coaching at Phoebus High School. Okay. Again with Elton Morgan. He was a head coach at Phoebus, and Miss Rita Montgomery. And they taught me how to coach kids today. And I coached there for 3 years. And then I got the head job girls' job at Kecoughtan High School. Johnny Pauls hired me.
Right. Now, I can remember when you first got the job over there, and we were talking, you say, I've got a team that's got the highest GPA in the world. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And this was when you were the girls' track coach.
Right, just the girls' track coach, and we were very proud of that. And we had a team GPA of 3.7, 3.8 every year. And it was our goal to maintain that high. I mean, what I told my kids was, you can be a great athlete and an average student and get a scholarship. You can be an average student and a great student and an average athlete and get a scholarship. Be a great student. The athletics will come.
Gotcha. Well, and that's what the kids need to understand, that if you don't have the academics, even if you're a great athlete, you may never get to the next level. But now you're coaching, but you're not in the school system. Per se, talk a little bit about what you're doing now.
I'm a director of a therapeutic mental health agency, and we work with kids that have trouble in school, kids that are having trouble in the community, maintaining their academic and behavioral standards. And I have a staff of about 60 people now that work for me. The name of the company is Agape Therapeutic Counseling. And so essentially I a counselor, and I still work with kids in schools. It's just a lot of different kids now.
Okay. So what you get done with that, then you end up going over to kick it in. Now you got the girls and the boys. And you got indoor track, you got cross country, or do you do anything with cross country at all?
I'm the director of track and field now. It's a new position we've just started at Kickerton. Bethel and Phoebus have been doing it a long time. Al Merrill was the boys' coach. He was there when I got there, so he was there a long time. He retired, and they asked me to take over the entire program. Coach Ed Ritchie is our cross country coach.
Right.
So he continues to do the cross country under the umbrella of track and field and cross country.
Okay, so you're basically above the whole
yes, sir.
Track and field thing at Kickerton, but basically what the coaching you do is indoor track and outdoor
track. Right. Coach Ritchie he does a great job with our distance kids, and when he finishes cross country, all the other coaches, I have several other coaches, Nanette Gaines, and we go out and we help. But he basically drives that entire program and does a great job. He's a district girls champion, and they finished second with the boys this year.
Right.
So we really don't bother him. We just help him when he needs it.
Right.
And then he comes and he works the distance program in the indoor and outdoor season.
Talk a little bit about the difference between indoor and outdoor. I mean, there's different events, different lengths of events.
And indoor track, what we use at Kickerton, we use it as a building block to prepare us for the outdoor season, because in the outdoor season you get different national championships and things of that nature, and you're just getting kids in that you get to train for 3 months.
Right.
Other kids that they're doing other things, volleyball, and a lot of different other sports. So that's your real time to really get them and teach them. So we use that as a good training ground. Now with the Boo Williams Center complex being available, it's a true indoor season. When we ran track, we were outside. They called it
running the halls.
Track. We went outside, had meets outdoors in the snow. One year we shoveled the snow off the track and then ran a track meet.
Oh.
So
this is indoor
this
track,
was indoor track, and this was before they had all those tights and underarm and all that stuff.
Right.
So you were just cold. The man would say, strip. You pull everything off but a t-shirt and shorts and run as fast as you could to get your clothes back on. That was the goal.
It was an incentive.
So that was the goal.
Quick,
take my stuff there and run as fast as you can.
But now, running on an indoor track is different too than I know some of the tracks are what they call with the boards, you get a different spring off of. So, and it's a tighter circle, it's not a 440. I mean a 220 track.
It's a 200 track. And what we've learned now is, and what Cos taught me, and I learned to do this, is we run in the halls, which simulates those turns.
Right.
And then we would put chairs and cones in the gym when you got opportunity to get into the gym to simulate the turns and acceleration in and out. And it's a teaching and learning process of how to run inside. Again, we have an advantage because we get to practice at Boo Williams twice a week throughout the season.
So all 4 of the high schools, will they kind of rotate?
We rotate. 2 schools go in on every other day, and the other 2 come in on odd days.
Okay,
and that way
so sometimes Monday, Wednesday, Friday, next week will be Tuesday and Thursday?
No, we keep the same days. Kickerton and Hampton High share, and we go on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Okay.
Bethel and Phoebus go on Mondays and Wednesdays. Fridays is normally activity there, things of that nature, so we don't have to go in on those days.
But everybody gets a chance to use that facility.
Right.
Well, you have to bus the kids there, I'm assuming.
The bus brings them in. And we're a little different than other sports because all the coaches work together. We travel together. We stay in the same hotels. We'll practice together because it's nothing for us to hide. We don't have any secrets. We don't have any plays. It's nothing to hide.
Yeah.
So we compete and we want to beat each other, but we don't go to the same lengths as basketball coaches and football coaches. It's just not necessary, and our sport isn't that big for us to do that.
Well, and talk about no secrets. When I had Eddie Williams in here, he said when they were running, they were noted for the track over at Bethel. And he said, we go to track meets, so we take a bottle of water and put Bethel water on it. And he said, those guys thought we had special water. So there's no secrets. But I thought that was kind of unique that they would use something like that to kind of psych out the other team.
Oh, yeah. You always do a little bit of different stuff mentally. When people see you, they do a lot of different drills and those type things. But in the end, you've got to go out and run. That's the beauty of track and field.
All right, now you're in the outdoor season, and now you got relays, which are important. You got your individual. So it's an individual and team.
Right.
It's I don't know if it's like wrestling or whatever, but where you have a team concept, but it's an individual.
It's like wrestling and tennis. Each man has to carry its own weight and score in different events or different levels. And then the relays come together for a team total score in the end.
Okay. All right, we kind of want to wrap this thing up, but this has been great. I've enjoyed having you over here. Tell me how you developed your coaching philosophy.
My coaching philosophy came from all the different people that were involved in my life, from Miss Montgomery. She taught me how to deal with the girls and what girls needed. Dennis Kozlowski, Pat Kovas, Elton Morgan. And what they all taught me was you have to be able to push, but still understand that these are just kids. And in the end, they're just kids. And you push them as hard as you can, as far as you can, but you always got to pull them back in because they're just kids. And that's basically what we do.
And you treat them all the same.
Everybody's exactly the same, no matter how fast you run or where you came from. Our rules at Kickerton are exactly the same. And I'm an old-fashioned coach. I have a lot of rules. And I may have more rules than most coaches. And as we go on, I have tried to change them, but society dictates that I add more because now we have a Facebook rule. We have an internet rule.
Didn't have that when you and I was in school.
We have telephone rules. Didn't have any of that stuff. We had a court.
We had FaceTime, but didn't have Facebook.
That was it. That was it. So you have to put those rules in because those can be detrimental to the team and other kids.
Right.
And treating people well and how you want to be treated is what we try to teach because we teach more than just running at Kickerton track. It's not about winning because we never talk about winning. We talk about doing the very best you can and getting better every day. And that's what we do.
Very good. Well, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in to LFC and Sports Time. I want to thank my special guest, William Washington. I'm your host, Bob Hintz. Till next time.